Hello. My name is Amir El-Shade, 31, 8 months pregnant, and last night, my cousin tried to kick down my bedroom door and called me a liar who didn't know the father of my child. You want crazy? Try surviving in a house where silence is considered loyalty, betrayal wears lipstick, and your own baby shower is being planned by the people trying to erase you. This isn't just family drama. This is war, with casseroles and passive-aggressive smiles. And it all started the night the door shook. It started with a sound I'll never forget. Not a scream, not a cry. It was the sound of my bedroom door shaking so hard it groaned in its hinges, like it didn't want to hold anymore. The hallway light flickered underneath, casting long, broken shadows across the floor. My hand instinctively wrapped around my stomach, as if my body knew something was about to cross a line it couldn't uncross. Eris was on the other side. "Open the damn door," she shouted, voice raw and shaking. "You don't even know who your baby's father is." I froze. For one breathless moment, my thoughts stopped like the world outside had vanished. Then my heart surged forward, hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. The words didn't surprise me. The timing did. No one else was awake. Not my mother, not my sister, not even my father, who slept like the dead on the recliner downstairs. It was just me, my baby, and the woman screaming through the door, like she wanted to tear it off its hinges. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. A few nights earlier, we were sitting at dinner. The roast chicken was dry. Monica talked about gas prices like it was the most personal thing in the world. Then Eris leaned back, smirking like she always did when she was about to say something awful dressed in sugar. "At least I know who would father my baby," she said, grinning at me like it was a joke. Everyone laughed. No one corrected her. No one looked at me. That was the first crack. Tonight was the break. My knees gave out first. I sank down next to the bed, one hand still pressed to my stomach, the other reaching for my phone. It slipped once, sweat making it hard to grip. My knuckles were white by the time I hit record. If they wouldn't believe what she said, maybe they'd believe what she did. Then came the first kick. A deep thud against the wood. A picture frame on the opposite wall fell to the ground and shattered. I flinched, holding my breath as glass scattered across the hardwood. "You think you're better than us?" she snarled. "You think you're some saint just because you're knocked up?" Another kick. Louder. The entire door frame trembled. "Open the door." I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. My fingers moved on their own, bringing the phone closer to my chest so the mic could catch everything. Her rage, her threats, her cruelty. I'm not fighting her, I thought. I'm documenting her. This wasn't about family anymore. This wasn't about keeping peace. This was survival. She cursed again. I felt each word vibrate through the wood like venom trying to seep through the cracks. I leaned in toward the door, close enough to hear her breath catching on the other side. "You're pathetic," she hissed. "Even your own sister can't stand you." That one landed deeper than it should have. My jaw tightened. My spine locked. But still, I said nothing. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. I whispered toward the belly beneath my hand, voice low, trembling but firm. "I won't let her hurt you." And just like that, silence. No more banging. No more insults. Just her footsteps retreating, slow and uneven, like someone backing away from a fire they weren't sure would stay contained. Relief didn't come. Not really. Silence in this house never meant safety. It meant waiting for the next time, the next blow, the next accusation. I stayed sitting there long after the footsteps faded. The glass shards glimmered beneath the bed like reminders. The door still shook faintly in its frame. My phone buzzed once. A text. I didn't check. Instead, I stared at the screen. Watch the red blinking beside the word recording. I hovered over the send button. My thumb twitched. I thought about my father's face, my mother's silence, Monica's eyes looking through me. And then I thought about my baby, still forming, still small, still untouched by the ugliness waiting outside this room. If I send this, I whispered, nothing in this house will ever be the same again. My thumb pressed the screen before my fear caught up to me. The video flew out of my phone like a truth I'd been holding too long, and for a moment I just sat there, listening to the quiet hum of the house settling around me. Dawn hadn't fully arrived yet, but the walls already felt different, like they knew what I'd done. Looking back now, that moment changed everything. When I finally walked into the kitchen, the morning sun cut across the tiles in thin, sharp lines. I moved slowly, as if the house might crack under my footsteps. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, but I held it anyway, something warm to anchor my shaking hands. My father came in without clearing his throat, without shuffling his feet, the way he usually did when he didn't want to startle anyone. Today he just walked straight in, holding his phone like it was evidence he wished he hadn't seen. He stood across from me, the counter separating us like a silent border. I saw it, he said. Nothing more. Nothing less. He didn't look angry. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked tired. Tired in a way that made me wonder how long he'd been pretending things were normal. I lowered my eyes to the rim of my cup. I figured you would. He nodded once, barely there, then placed his phone on the counter and sat down. He didn't reach for me. He didn't ask if I was all right. In this house, concern wasn't something spoken. It was measured by silence, by who stays in the room rather than who walks out. That's where it all started. A vibration buzzed against the table. My phone lit up. I knew the tone before I even checked it, Monica. Do you always have to make things harder than they are? Another bubble appeared. She only wanted to talk. Then one more. Why do you always make everything about you? My stomach tightened. It wasn't the insults that got me. It was her voice in my head, the voice of someone who had watched me struggle since childhood and still managed to pick the cruelest angle every time. I set the phone down, face down. The wood underneath felt colder than the coffee I still hadn't sipped. I didn't look at my father. I wasn't sure if he'd seen the messages, or if he was pretending not to. A memory slid in, the kind I never asked for. I was 12. Eris had thrown a plate during a tantrum because she didn't want to eat leftovers. The dish shattered across the floor, china shards flying everywhere. Monica rushed to her first, holding her like a toddler, whispering that everything would be okay. I remembered sweeping the broken pieces while they hugged. No one said thank you. Not even once. I didn't realize it then, but that moment shaped everything. I stood from the table, pushing the chair back gently so it wouldn't scrape and wake the rest of the house. My feet moved on their own toward the fridge. There, hanging by a crooked sunflower magnet, was the baby shower prep list. I scanned the sheet. Names filled every line: cake, decorations, music, photography. Monica's name appeared twice. Eris's handwriting dotted the margins, full of hearts and swirls like a teenager claiming territory. My name wasn't there, not even in the small rolls. Near the bottom was a taped square, one word scrawled in blue pen: others. I stared at it long enough to feel something inside me fold. My fingers hovered over the corner of the list, brushing the edge as if it might bleed. The quiet in the kitchen shifted, heavy and thick. Behind me, I heard Monica's voice drifting from the hallway, casual, careless. We just thought you'd want to rest. Rest. That was always her word for me. Too fragile, too emotional, too inconvenient. They don't want me to rest, I thought. They want me to disappear quietly. I pulled the list off the fridge. The magnet clattered to the floor, rolling under the dishwasher. Instead of tearing the paper, like a younger version of me would have done, I folded it neatly into thirds. Then into 6. Then again, smaller still. It felt like sealing away a piece of evidence. I opened my journal and slid the folded paper between the pages. I didn't put it in the trash where it could be found or dismissed. I kept it, because this time I was keeping receipts. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining things. The floor creaked behind me. I turned. Monica stood in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest like she'd already decided her position in this war. "You look tired," she said, tilting her head as if offering sympathy. "I slept fine," I answered, keeping my tone level, just not quietly. Her expression shifted, barely but enough. The corners of her smile tightened before she turned away. I watched her walk out, her confidence pressed into every step. She didn't notice the list missing from the fridge. She didn't notice me watching. Looking back, I should have taken her reaction as a warning. But instead, I set the journal on the counter, closed it with both hands, and finally finished the cold coffee in one long swallow. The bitterness tasted honest for once. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. The box came 2 hours later. It sat on the porch like something too careful to explode, but just dangerous enough to dread. I didn't rush to open it. I waited. I waited long enough for the wind to pick up and for the lavender ribbon tied at the top to come loose on its own. It was addressed to me, but I didn't need to read the handwriting to know it came from her. The paper was soft, expensive, pink with little silver stars pressed into the edges. A card tucked under the bow read, "With love." I opened it on the porch. I didn't bring it inside right away. I needed space, some distance between the doorstep and the part of the house I still called safe. Inside was a baby blanket, pale yellow with embroidered daisies, a tiny white onesie with soft cuffs, and a card. The handwriting was unmistakable. Eris always made her loops too perfect, her cursive too controlled. I hope the baby has someone to learn truth from, not just performance. I stared at the card until the words blurred. Then I folded it in half, not to destroy it, just to contain it. She's not sending gifts, I thought. She's sending bullets wrapped in tulle. That's where it all started. I brought the box inside, holding it like a live animal, the kind that might bite if you looked away. The kitchen lights were on, and my mother was sorting paper napkins into 2 piles, plain and floral. On the table next to her was a stack of printed pages. The guest list. I didn't ask. I just reached for the top page. My eyes scanned the rolls. Host, Monica Vane. Coordination, Eris Hallow. Decorations, Sarah Logan. Cake, Aunt Marnie. Family representative. There was no name after that last one. No placeholder. Just an empty line. I asked anyway, maybe just to hear how she'd spin it. Why is my name not on this? My mother didn't look up. She adjusted the napkins, aligned their edges with a ruler's precision. We thought maybe you didn't want the stress. I waited for the rest. The part where she said I'd be included in another way, or that the title didn't mean anything. But there was nothing. Stress. I repeated. Or visibility? She blinked, but still didn't look at me. That said more than I needed. A ding came from my phone. I picked it up half hoping it was something else. Anything else. But it was a message from someone I hadn't talked to in weeks. Just saw the invite. So cute. Can't wait to see Eris's decor ideas. I opened the link. The Evie was pastel blue with watercolor stars. Eris's name was right there. Creative lead. There was no photo of me. No mention that the shower was for my child. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the phone. I walked to the box I had brought in earlier. picked up the blanket, folded it like I was tucking away something sacred, even though it wasn't. I didn't cry. I just moved carefully, precisely, like my actions were the only part of me I still had control over. I was the mother, and somehow also the help. That's when it shifted. I climbed the stairs slowly, one hand brushing the railing, the other holding the folded blanket. I opened my bedroom door and walked straight to the bed. Underneath it, I placed the box. Not to hide it, just to store it somewhere where it couldn't look at me. Then I pulled out my notebook, the one with the soft leather cover and the stitched binding I had picked up years ago, thinking I'd use it to record baby milestones. On the first page, I wrote in large, careful letters, "Witness file." Then I paused. The pen hovered, and I added a subtitle, "What they chose to forget." A memory rose, one I hadn't invited. My 9th birthday. The cake had been vanilla with buttercream roses, but only one candle. They said they forgot to buy the others. Eris blew it out for me. In every picture from that day, I'm smiling, but my hands are clenched. I know that now. Another one. My high school graduation. No signs.
No chairs. No flowers.
Monica had a full row when she graduated. And once, a family photo at the beach. I stood on the far left. When they posted it on Facebook, they cropped me out, said it was to make it fit the frame. Each one became an entry in my mind. Each one a cut. Not deep enough to bleed, but deep enough to leave a scar. I wasn't erased by accident. I was edited out on purpose. The slideshow was beautiful, except for the fact that I didn't exist in it. Soft music drifted through the living room, the kind you'd hear in sentimental commercials about family cookouts and cross-country minivans. Monica sat with a laptop, clicking through each photo like she was unveiling a masterpiece. Graydon stood behind her, arms crossed. Sorella was at the table folding napkins again, like something in the fabric might fix what she didn't have the words for. I sat on the edge of the sofa, careful not to lean too far into the comfort. The images flashed across the projector. Holidays, birthdays, random candids of Eris smiling at the beach, Eris lighting candles at Monica's wedding, Eris holding someone else's baby. Slide after slide after slide. Not one included me. I counted without meaning to. 37 images. 4 different dresses Eris wore. 12 people who weren't me. They captured everyone's joy, I thought. Except the person who created the reason for this day. My stomach twisted, not from surprise, but from recognition. This was no accident. That's where it all started. I waited until the last note of the song faded. Monica turned and smiled like she'd just led a prayer circle.
Well,
Thoughts. I kept my voice flat. This isn't a slideshow. It's a filtered memory. She blinked, then shrugged, not even looking uncomfortable. We used what Eris sent over. You could have added more if you'd wanted. The audacity of her calm nearly stunned me. My mind flashed to my 18th birthday. Everyone forgot. No text.
no cake.
I used babysitting money to buy myself a sheet cake and wrote my name on it in crooked blue icing.
No candles.
Just frosting and silence. And they still expected me to show up smiling. I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. Eris was on the couch across the room, pretending to file her nails. She didn't say a word, but she looked satisfied, like she'd won a round of a game no one else knew was being played. I stood. My hands were steady. I walked over to the kitchen where Sorella had just finished refilling the lemonade. She looked up with a start, her hand fluttering over the spoon in the pitcher. Eris has something she'd like to share, she said. A special tribute. I didn't move. I just watched. Eris stood, slowly, as if the moment belonged to her. From a bag near her feet, she pulled out a small folded quilt, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a lavender ribbon. She handed it to my mother, who unwrapped it with the reverence of someone opening a family heirloom. It was a baby blanket, pale pink, custom embroidered. The name Amaya stitched in cursive across the center. Below it, a date, April 12th, and at the bottom corner, a blue butterfly. My throat closed. April 12th. That was the date she told everyone she miscarried. The same date she wept in the living room and demanded sympathy like it was her birthright. And that butterfly. She knew. She knew I'd picked it as a symbol for my baby's room. She'd seen the sketches in my notebook, the ones Monica flipped through without asking. This wasn't a gift. It was a theft wrapped in pastels. Eris tilted her head, eyes wide and sweet. I thought maybe we could share something for once. I stepped forward, just enough so she'd hear every word. You don't share things, I said. You steal them. And then you cry when someone notices. She blinked.
Twice.
Monica shifted in her seat. Graydon scratched his jaw, but still said nothing. And Sorella, she looked at the blanket in her hands like it had turned to glass. I looked at all of them and realized I wasn't waiting for anyone to take my side. I already knew they wouldn't. She didn't just steal a name, I thought. She tried to rewrite who this child belongs to. That was enough. I turned toward the door. My steps were calm, quiet, final. Don't leave angry. My mother called after me. I didn't answer. I didn't slam the door, either. I closed it with the same care I used when I used to sneak out of this house as a teenager, quiet, so no one would know I was gone. But this time I wasn't coming back through it. I didn't walk out because I was angry. I walked out because I was awake. By the time I reached my room again, the house felt like it was holding its breath. The hallway carried the faint echo of the door I'd just closed downstairs, soft, intentional, the sound of someone finally recognizing their own worth. I sat on the edge of the bed, letting the weight of my choice settle across my shoulders. I didn't stay long. The truth has a way of nudging you forward, even when you're tired. The chat window popped up by accident, but what I saw was intentional. That's how it started. I had picked up the family iPad only to transfer a few files for the shower. My plan was simple: organize what little they'd allowed me to contribute, keep my head down, and finish the night without another argument. But the moment I unlocked the screen, a notification slid across the top like a blade. Family shower crew. Eris. Let her think she's included. The word sat there for a full 5 seconds before disappearing. But a wound like that doesn't vanish when the banner fades. My hands went cold before my mind even shaped the anger behind my ribs. There it was, I thought. My own baby shower. My name used like an afterthought in a thread I was never meant to see. That's where it all started. My finger hovered over the message icon, but I didn't hesitate long. If they had nothing to hide, they would have invited me into the conversation. The moment the thread opened, the truth spilled out faster than I could read it. Eris. We need to keep her calm. Stress makes her dramatic.
Monica. Yeah.
She takes everything personally. Friend 1. Just let Eris handle the pretty stuff. She deserves a moment after everything she's been through. Friend 2. Agreed. Amirel can help by staying out of the way. I scrolled, jaw locked. Too fragile. Too sensitive. Too emotional. The same script they'd used on me since I was old enough to understand the difference between included and tolerated. A memory surfaced without warning. Eris's graduation trip. They told me it was last minute. I was 14. I stood behind the garage, listening to them pack the car, their laughter echoing as they argued over playlist choices. I cried quietly, wiping my face with the sleeve of a sweater 2 sizes too big. I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. Now here they were, years later, saying the same thing in new words. Leave her out. She won't know. She won't matter. I've spent too many years grieving rooms I was never in, I whispered to myself, closing the iPad. The screen darkened, and for a brief moment, I saw my reflection. Tired eyes, hair pulled back in a messy knot, and a growing edge in my expression I barely recognized. Strength looks different when it's born from betrayal. It becomes quieter, sharper. I walked downstairs, each step steady, deliberate. The kitchen lights were on again. My mother always kept them bright in the mornings, even when the sun didn't need help. She stood at the sink rinsing a bowl, humming a tune she used to sing when I was small. "Mama," I said softly. She turned, drying her hands on a towel. "You all right, sweet girl?" I looked at her, really looked. For years, I believed her gentleness was protection. But now I saw how silence can be a weapon too, one held carefully, politely, until it cuts deeper than shouting ever could. "Did you know they were planning all of this without me?" The towel stilled in her hands. She didn't answer right away. That hesitation told me more than any sentence would. "They think they're helping," she said finally, voice thin. "Do you?" She blinked fast, like the question pushed too close. "I think you've been hurt enough already." She wasn't trying to lie. She just didn't want to choose. But silence is a choice. That's when I knew where I stood. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to debate. I turned and climbed the stairs, leaving her staring at the sink as if the dishes might deliver a different truth. In my room, I opened my notebook, its spine worn, its pages soft from years of holding thoughts I swallowed instead of speaking. On a fresh page, I wrote down every name from the group chat. Each one felt like drawing a line in the sand. I boxed the list in with thick strokes of my pen. Below it, I wrote 2 words. Witness file. Then I flipped to the next page and wrote in a smaller hand. Volume 2. A memory surfaced, gentler than the others. My mother brushing my hair when I was little, tugging carefully at knots. Her voice low, soothing. "Don't make waves, sweet girl." But waves are how islands are born. I didn't know what was waiting for me next.
They thought I was too fragile to fight back.
I hoped they kept thinking that. By the next morning, the air around me felt different, thicker, like the house itself was bracing for impact. I woke early, not because I'd slept well, but because my mind wouldn't let me rest. Every thought pressed against me, urging me to check things, recheck them, make sure nothing else had been taken from me in the night. That instinct pulled me toward my dresser where I kept the medical papers for my upcoming appointment. I didn't plan to find anything wrong. I just needed order. Something predictable. But the moment I opened the envelope, the ultrasound envelope, I knew it wasn't intact. The flap was bent strangely, like fingers had pried it open. My breath stalled. My hands froze halfway in the air. The paper felt lighter. The photo was gone. The ultrasound was missing. Then I saw it online, with Eris's name beneath it. That's where it all started. Something clicked inside me. Not panic. Something sharper. Something that whispered, "Check Facebook." I opened the app before I had time to talk myself out of it. And there it was, my baby's image, my tiny forming child, posted on Eris's profile like it belonged to her. Her caption read, "Some miracles don't make it to Earth, but they never leave us." My entire body tightened. Every muscle, every memory, every moment she tried to take something from me, and succeeded, rose at once. She didn't just steal an image, I thought. She stole my proof of life. Comments poured beneath her post. "You're so strong. This broke my heart. You'll be an amazing mom one day." And then Monica's butterfly emoji, matching the one Eris had stitched on that blanket, glowed on the screen like a taunt. A message popped up from a friend I hadn't spoken to in months. "Wait, is that your ultrasound?" Rage boiled, but it wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It focused, narrowed, and sharpened into something deliberate. She was trying to turn my truth into her sympathy currency. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But denial is a soft place, and sometimes we stay in it because getting up hurts. That's where it all started. A memory pushed forward. Monica handing back my essay in 10th grade, the A+ smugly circled at the top. Except the handwriting wasn't mine. "You should be flattered she copied you," she said. Eris had turned in my work, taken the credit, and once again, I'd been expected to swallow it quietly. Now, the same voice surfaced, echoing through the years like a cracked bell. "Eris just wants to feel close to you." So I tested it. I walked downstairs. Monica stood in the kitchen doorway, checking her messages. She didn't hide the screen when she saw me. She didn't think she needed to. "Did you see her post?" I asked. She shrugged, as if talking about the weather. "You don't own a sonogram image, Amiral. Let it go. Let it go. Let the theft go. Let the lie go. Let myself go." My jaw tightened, not with shock, with clarity. Funny how the people closest to you, I thought, are always the first to draw blood and call it bonding.
I didn't yell.
I didn't cry. I didn't give her the performance she expected. Instead, I turned away, climbed the stairs, and reached for my laptop. If they wanted to make this a story, I would give them the truth, more precise, more permanent, and far more devastating. That's where it all started. My fingers moved quickly, opening old folders I hadn't touched in years. Back when Eris and I shared a Google Cloud Drive for community college assignments. I clicked through dusty documents, half-finished projects, forgotten essays. Then I found it. A file marked simply, VID_2147. I pressed play. There was Eris, hair messy, mascara smeared, talking to her ex in a small dorm bathroom. "I lied about the miscarriage," she whispered, tears streaking down her cheeks. I wanted people to see me again." The words hit me harder than her screaming ever had. Because this wasn't rage. This wasn't spite. This was strategy. She built tragedies to stay relevant. She borrowed grief like clothing. She used empathy like credit. And now she'd used my baby to pay her emotional debt. I downloaded the video instantly. Renamed it confession_01.mp4. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't wobble. For the first time in days, my feelings aligned perfectly with my actions. I exhaled. "Truth isn't always loud," I whispered, "but it's patient." Looking back, I should have known this moment was the beginning of the end for her. I closed the laptop. I sat back on the bed, and I let the quiet settle not as fear, but as preparation. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. Let her build her world out of lies. I'll burn it down with the truth. The quiet that settled around me after finding that video wasn't the kind that soothed. It was the kind that sharpened edges and made the walls feel tighter. I sat there on the bed, laptop closed, hands resting on my knees, waiting for whatever would come next, because I could feel it gathering like a storm turning in the distance. It didn't take long. Dad knocked once on my door. Not the soft knock he used when he wanted to ask if I wanted dinner. This one carried weight. Purpose. Something final. "Your father wants us all downstairs," my mother called from the hallway. Her voice sounded strained, like someone forcing a ribbon through the eye of a needle. Dad called a family meeting. For the first time, it wasn't about keeping peace. That's where it all started. I stepped into the hallway and felt the house's mood shift. The air was different, Not anxious, but charged. Even the floorboards seemed to hold their breath. I carried the folder under my arm, the one labeled witness file, and felt the spine press against my ribs with every step. The living room was dim, curtains half drawn. Afternoon light sliced through the slats like narrow blades. Dad sat in his recliner, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. His jaw was set the way it used to be when he spoke to difficult parents at school board meetings. Monica leaned against the wall, arms crossed, pretending boredom but shifting from foot to foot like she was standing on loose ground. And Eris. She sat on the couch with one leg crossed over the other, scrolling her phone, smiling like she was out to brunch with friends instead of facing the consequences of her cruelty. I arrived last. My footsteps echoed softly on the hardwood. When I entered, she glanced up at me, smirked, and went back to scrolling. They always told me to lower my voice, I thought. Today, I brought proof instead. I took the empty dining chair across the room and set the folder in my lap. The sound of the cardboard hitting the wood was quiet, but it might as well have been a gavel. Dad looked at each of us before speaking.
His voice was calm, too calm.
The kind of calm a person uses when they've already made up their mind. Eris, he began, I saw the video. I saw the post. I saw the look on my daughter's face. Her fingers paused on the screen. She lifted her eyes slowly, cocking her head like she was listening to something faint. You're done here. The words landed like a stone thrown in still water. No shouting. No dramatics. Just the truth, solid and simple. Eris blinked once, twice, then let out a soft laugh. Are you serious?
Dad didn't move.
Casey, get your things. She scoffed, staring at him as if she could intimidate him into changing his mind. When he didn't flinch, she turned to Monica for backup. Monica swallowed hard but stayed quiet. Dad's gaze slid toward her. Monica, if you think this is unfair, you can go with her. For the first time, Monica's confidence cracked. Her mouth opened, then closed, and she took a step back as if trying to melt into the wall. She didn't defend Eris. She just looked at the floor and folded her arms tighter. Eris slammed her phone down on the couch cushion. Her mask was slipping piece by piece. I didn't cheer, I thought. Justice isn't loud. Sometimes it just finally happens. Dad stood, signaling the end of the discussion. Pack your things, he said. Both of you will leave today. He walked away.
No lecture. No sermon.
No attempt to soften the blow. Eris muttered a curse under her breath and stormed upstairs, each step punctuated with a thud of anger. Monica stayed frozen in place until she realized I was watching her. Then she turned her face away. That's where it all started. I left the room quietly, heading upstairs to my own bedroom. I opened my phone, hand steady, and went directly to the baby shower guest registry. Eris, removed. Monica, removed. Then I changed the security code to the house. Then the Wi-Fi password. Then the door camera settings. I sent digital updates only to friends I trusted, people who had shown up for me without needing to be asked. A knock sounded behind me. I expected my mother, but it was Monica. She stood in the doorway, trying to wear an expression halfway between concern and condescension. You don't have to do this, she said, voice tight. You're being dramatic. I turned toward her slowly, not raising my voice, not matching her tension. You're not invited anymore, I said. And I didn't ask for your permission. Her eyes flickered, not with hurt, but with disbelief. Like she'd discovered that a familiar door no longer opened. A memory flashed, the day she told me, "We only keep peace because you don't make it harder." Peace isn't silence, I thought. It's the freedom to speak without flinching. Monica stepped back without replying. She didn't slam anything. She just faded away, confusion trailing behind her like perfume. Downstairs, I heard Eris dragging her suitcase, wheels thudding over each step.
No apologies. No explanations.
Just the exit of someone who had expected to win forever. Monica left 15 minutes later, slower, less sure, her car door closing without conviction. I didn't follow them outside. I just watched from the window, not to make sure they were gone, but to remember I let them go. The house was quieter than it had ever been, and for the first time it felt like mine. The quiet held for days. Not the kind that pressed down like a weight, but the kind that gave space to breathe. Without Eris's voice ricocheting through the walls or Monica's sideways glances turning into commentary, the house felt neutral. The invitation list had been trimmed. The nursery list was next. That's where it all started. I stood in the nursery folding baby clothes, small soft ones that still smelled like fresh cotton and unshed dreams. I placed them in a drawer labeled with a gold marker. The kind Monica once said was too much. I didn't care. Then I opened the package. It had arrived that morning, addressed to me, with my handwriting on the return label. I had almost forgotten I ordered it. One of those things I did during a moment of hope I didn't trust yet. Inside was the nameplate. Whitewashed wood, carefully carved letters, Amoy Shade. Holding it made something in me settle. Not in my stomach, not in my chest, but deeper. Like it was the first thing I'd touched that wasn't up for debate. Just as I stood to hang it, I heard footsteps. My mother lingered in the doorway, hands clutching a folded towel, eyes trying to look anywhere but at the name in my hands. "You're sure about that name?" she asked softly. I didn't turn. I pressed the nameplate into the wall above the crib and held it there for a second before letting go. "She has no connection to my grandmother," I said. "But I do. And so will my daughter." The name stood centered, firm, unmoving. I didn't choose a name to hurt her, I thought. I chose it to heal me. That's when I knew I wasn't naming a baby. I was naming a legacy. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. By late afternoon, the backyard had transformed into something simple and warm. String lights blinked from the porch beams. Folding chairs lined the lawn. The kind of setup made not for impressing people, but for welcoming them. Only real friends came. No pretenders. No peacekeepers. Just people who had asked how I was without expecting me to say fine. I walked slowly between the tables, one hand at the small of my back for balance. The baby kicked once, soft, like a gentle nudge to say she was here too. Then I saw him. Cauldron stood near the oak tree where I used to cry as a girl. His posture was relaxed, hands tucked in the pockets of his jeans, but the look in his eyes told me he wasn't there just to smile. He reached for my hand and pulled me to the shaded patch under the branches. The breeze shifted, carrying the scent of cake and tulips. "You built this space," he said. "This piece. I just want to make sure no one ever takes it again." He knelt. Not like in a movie. Not slow or dramatic. Just honest. From his pocket, he pulled out a ring. Simple, beautiful, familiar. The same one his mother gave him months ago, with a quiet nudge that, when it feels right, you'll know. "I didn't think I'd ever want to belong again," I whispered. "But maybe I just needed to choose who I belonged to." He didn't say anything. He just smiled and waited. And I nodded. That's where it all started. Later that night, when the candles burned down and the laughter lingered only in memory, I sat alone on the porch. Crickets murmured across the lawn, and the air carried that soft warmth Charleston keeps even after the sun leaves. I pulled out my phone and opened the saved voicemail. Cauldron's voice came through, clear and steady. "Whatever happens, I believe you. I always have. We'll leave when you're ready." He didn't say if I needed to leave.
He said when.
as if he knew I would decide for myself, and that choice wouldn't scare him. I didn't leave, I whispered. I asked the storm to step outside of me, and it did. I looked down at my belly and rested my hand there. Tomorrow, I'd sign the lease for a new place. The baby's name would be the first thing on the mailbox. By morning, the mailbox outside our new place had my daughter's name printed on it in bold, black letters. Amoy Shade. I took a photo of it, not to share, not to prove anything, but just to remind myself that something permanent had finally begun. Cauldron was in the nursery putting together the last piece of the crib. He hummed under his breath, the same tune he sang when he was deployed, the one he used to send as voice notes to make me laugh. We'd made it. Not to some finish line, but to something still, something safe. Then my phone buzzed. Look familiar? A text from one of the few people left on my side of the old world.
No puntuación.
Just a link. I clicked it. Her name showed up again, this time under a Craigslist listing titled Urgent Moving Sale. That's where it all started. Used designer handbags. A mirrored coffee table I once spilled wine on. A box of monogrammed towels from Monica's bridal shower. All listed under Casey Hallow. Final line. Moving fast. Slightly used. Price to go. She always left things behind, I thought. Except consequences. I sat on the floor beside the crib, cross-legged, phone in my palm. Cauldron looked over once, eyes catching mine.
I didn't need to explain.
He nodded, like people do when they've seen enough. I scrolled through the images in the listing. Photo after photo. And then one that didn't belong. It was taken outside some rundown duplex. Eris sat on the curb, hoodie up, legs crossed tight. Her face wasn't clear, but I knew that posture. The way she leaned against herself like the world had turned its back on her, like it was her turn to feel small. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. And I didn't pity her. What no one saw were the stairs she used to sit on at 14, sobbing into my mother's lap. What no one knew was how she'd kissed the only boy I ever trusted just to prove she could. And no one remembered that the graduation speech she gave at Monica's college send-off had been written by me 2 days before she stood at that podium, tears in her eyes, reciting my words. Looking back now, I should have known this was always the ending. Another ping. New message request. The name blinked across the screen. Sita Hallow. I opened it. You won. Hope you're proud. I have nothing left. You always wanted me gone. I stared at it for a long time. Long enough to feel the difference between grief and clarity. I never wanted her gone, I thought. I just wanted to be safe. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed 4 different replies. Deleted all of them. Not out of bitterness, but because the silence said more. Then I hit delete, not to forget it happened, but to stop rereading it like it was gospel. That's where it ended. By evening, the nursery was finished. The tiny bookshelf filled with gently loved stories. A lamp that dimmed to a warm golden glow. And in the center, the crib, simple, steady hers. I placed a framed photo of my grandmother on the small table by the window. It wasn't a shrine.
No candles. No flowers.
Just memory. A candle flickered once beside the frame. I lit it not for ritual, but for rhythm, for warmth, for light. They gave me nothing, I whispered. I built everything. The wind moved outside. Not loud, not threatening, just enough to make the trees shift. And in that stillness, I exhaled for the first time in years without feeling like I owed someone an explanation. Forgiveness was never owed. But peace, I gave that to myself. Some people inherit peace. Others have to build it, nail by nail, truth by truth. I didn't win because I shouted louder. I won because I stopped asking to be seen and made space where I couldn't be erased. Tell me, have you ever had to uninvite your own blood just to feel safe? Have you ever been the quiet storm in a house full of noise? If this story made you feel something, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More true stories of survival, silence, and strength coming next week. You're not alone, and you're not invisible anymore.